Okay, let's dig into this. We're taking a deep dive today into spiritual freedom,
Mhm.
and our guide is a set of excerpts from a text by Morteza Motahhari.
That's right. And what we have here, it looks like a really structured exploration of this, well, philosophical and spiritual idea.
Yeah, it seems very methodical.
It is. It's presented in these distinct sections, each tackling a different facet of what spiritual freedom might mean. It really gives us a kind of map of the author's thinking.
So our mission then is to walk that map with you, the listener. We'll try to unpack the key ideas, the structure that these excerpts suggest. Get a feel for what this text is offering about freedom, but from an inner perspective, right?
Exactly. And even though we're working with, fragments, a table of contents, key phrases, page numbers, you can still see the logical progression.
You can definitely see a journey unfolding.
hmm
So that journey seems to kick off right at the beginning. Pages 10 through 37 introduce the whole concept of spiritual freedom.
Yes, the foundational stuff. Looking at those early pages, it feels like the text immediately sets the stage. It's not just a quick definition.
No, it seems more like laying groundwork.
Right, laying the groundwork, maybe introducing some core terms that the author plans to build on later.
And what's interesting, I think, is how this introduction probably frames spiritual freedom as something more than just, not being locked up.
Absolutely. More than just a lack of external constraint, it seems rooted much deeper in our inner state.
The keywords popping up suggest the author's defining it in maybe specific ways, perhaps ways we wouldn't immediately expect.
Could be defining the terms of the discussion, really.
Okay, so from that base, the text moves pretty quickly into action and thought. That covers pages 40 to 60. How do those two seem to connect in the author's view?
Well, based on the structure, this section looks like it explores that fundamental interplay between what we do and what we think. The author seems to be saying, look, our actions aren't separate from our inner world, our thoughts, our intentions, and this link is crucial when we're discussing freedom.
Right, not just abstract freedom, but lived freedom.
Precisely.
And the source material really emphasizes this, doesn't it? There's a much bigger section later called the role of action thought,
hmm
running from page 62 all the way to 107.
Yeah, that's a huge chunk of the text.
It really is.
That sheer volume of pages tells you the author sees this dynamic action and thought as absolutely central to the whole idea of spiritual freedom.
So it's not just a passing observation.
No, not at all. The text probably dives really deep into how our actions and thoughts actively shape our inner freedom, maybe how aligning them or gaining mastery over them is the key.
Makes sense. Then, moving deeper into that sort of inner landscape, the outline points towards ascension or elevation. This is explored from page 112 to 150.
Yeah, ascension. That word immediately brings to mind ideas of personal growth, right? Self-development. And when you link that to spiritual freedom, the source mentions headings like ascension and self-building.
Ah, okay. So it's not just rising, it's building while rising.
That's what it suggests, that the author sees this spiritual elevation not as passive, something that just happens, but as an active process. You're building your inner capacity.
Like strengthening an inner muscle.
Sort of, yeah. Cultivating something within yourself in order to rise, rather than just waiting for external barriers to disappear.
Okay, building on that idea, then that inner capacity, the next major section is reason and will, pages 154 to 188.
Right. Reason and will, two pretty powerful aspects of, human consciousness.
Absolutely. How does the author seem to weave these into the picture of spiritual freedom?
Well, this section seems to be exploring how our rational side, our reason, and our individual willpower, our will, how they interact. The author's likely looking at how developing these, strengthening them, or maybe using them correctly, how that's crucial for spiritual freedom.
So it raises questions like, does reason guide the will?
Or does will empower reason? Or is it a feedback loop? The text seems to dig into that relationship as a core part of building that inner freedom we're talking about.
Interesting. And the text seems to shift gears a bit, looking at freedom itself more broadly. Pages 196 to 239 focus on the nature and different types of freedom.
Yes, there's a specific section mentioned, types of freedom, or perhaps bounds of freedom.
Okay, types. So freedom isn't just one thing.
Apparently not, according to this text. It signals a more granular look. By discussing types, the author is differentiating between various forms it can take.
Does he give examples?
Well, the source lists some specific categories, things that look like terms for social freedom, intellectual freedom, maybe others.
Oh,
It seems like the text is dissecting freedom, breaking it down into components to grasp its full scope.
And within that broader look, the source directly poses the question, what is the nature of freedom?
Right. That goes beyond just listing types. It's a deeper philosophical dive into the very essence of what freedom is.
Back to the core question.
Exactly. The author isn't just categorizing anymore. They're trying to define that fundamental quality, that state of being free. This section probably links back to the earlier ideas about reason and will.
Suggesting they might be integral to the very nature of freedom itself.
That's likely the connection being made, yes.
Okay, so as the text moves towards maybe a conclusion, it introduces another element, love. Pages 215 to 225 explore love and its connection to will.
Love and will. That seems to add a different kind of layer, doesn't it? Maybe an emotional or relational dimension to what we've discussed so far, thought, action, reason.
Did this feel different?
It introduces a potentially very powerful element. How does love relate to will in the context of spiritual freedom? Does love somehow liberate the will?
Or maybe the will enables true love.
Could be either or both. This section suggests the author sees love playing a significant role, perhaps even a transformative one, in how we experience or realize freedom.
And finally, the whole exploration seems to culminate in the section on the realization of freedom, pages 242 to 256.
Right, the realization. This sounds like the practical payoff. How does this spiritual freedom actually get achieved? How is it lived out?
After all the theory, how does it happen?
Exactly. After defining it, exploring its parts like action, thought, reason, will, even touching on love, the author finally lands on how it becomes a reality.
And terms like free will pop up again here.
They do, and that seems highly significant. It strongly suggests that actually attaining and manifesting spiritual freedom is directly tied to exercising our free will.
So it implies maybe overcoming things, internal limits, external pressures.
That's the implication, yes. Through conscious choice, through inner strength, perhaps.
Okay, so if we trace that path laid out in these excerpts, we start with the foundation of spiritual freedom. Then we explore how our actions and thoughts are central. Then it moves inward ascension, self-building, the role of reason and will, and cultivating that inner capacity.
Yeah.
Then it zooms out to categorize freedom, define its nature, before zooming back in to highlight love alongside will.
And finally landing on how it's all actively realized through free will.
It's quite a journey.
It really is. This deep dive, just by following the text's structure, gives us a really sophisticated way to think about freedom. It pushes way beyond just, political or social liberties.
It frames it as an inner state, doesn't it?
Completely. An inner state that's built through conscious effort, through aligning our inner and outer selves, and cultivating these core human capacities, reason, will, even love.
It really does challenge us to look inward when we think about what it means to be free. So considering this whole journey the text lays out from our thoughts and actions to reason, will, love, building inner capacity, and finally realizing freedom through free will, it makes you wonder. For you listening now, what inner capacities do you think are most essential for experiencing that kind of true spiritual freedom in your own life?